Hey everybody, welcome on back to Rubbin is Racing. It's presented by Cabo Wabo Tequila. It's right in front of me for those watching on Rumble. Cabo Wabo Tequila is unquestionably Mexican tequila with an undeniably American attitude. It's not just tequila. It's damn good, thick cut, 100% Blue Weber agave tequila. And Cabo Wabo Tequila is the official tequila partner of NASCAR. So add a bold splash to race day watching with Cabo Wabo Tequila. If you're heading to Talladega this weekend, come celebrate race day with Cabo Wabo. And they want to remind you to leave the driving to the professionals for this Geico 500. So please enjoy the thick-cut, bold taste of Cabo Wabo Tequila responsibly. Grab your buds and a bottle of Cabo Wabo Tequila for the boldest race day experience. Got to be 21 years or older. Please handle this stuff, this delicious stuff, responsibly. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy the race. What's up, guys? How's everybody?
How we doing?
Good.
Is this the official? I mean, do we have to glaze Chase Elliott? I say that. I got the poster behind me.
Yeah, I was going to
got the
say.
Hooters jacket on. I'm 100% in glaze mode for this fucking thing. But, it's just going to happen organically, right?
I'm surprised you could talk with all that in your mouth. But, yeah, no, great to see Chase back in victory lane.
I'm surprised you guys aren't crying. It's so bad for NASCAR now that Chase is winning again.
I think I was
I know
anti.
that wasn't really the point you were making. You were basically saying it's fine that he's not winning.
Yeah, I mean, no, I think it's great that he's back. I think it would be bad for NASCAR if there was an extended drought of Chase Elliott winless.
Which there was.
There was, but, I mean, it's also cool that he snapped it. So,
yeah.
Fall of 2022 at Talladega was his last win, so 40-some-odd races. There's obviously much longer streaks than that, including Brad Kay, I think, is up to like 106 or 107 races perhaps without a win. So it wasn't so egregiously long. But, yeah, I made the point a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it was good to give other people some shine while he's in that rut, but he's out of that rut, and Chase Elliott is a playoff driver. Congratulations. I'll start with headlines like we normally do. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the Xfinity race at Richmond, and we told you the story about how Joey Gase ripped the bumper off his car after wrecking and threw it at Dawson Cram's Camaro while it was passing under caution. NASCAR slapped him with a $5,000 fine, and then both the drivers who were involved in the incident released T-shirts saying, like, here's your souvenir, and the other guy said, sometimes you're the bumper, sometimes you're the windshield. Here's a follow-up to that. This week, a company that's Bumpers That Delivers, the name of the company. It bought a spot on Joey Gase's number 3 Ford Mustang going forward, and the partnership will be on full display starting at Michigan Speedway's Cabo Wabo 250, which me and Spider were the Grand Marshals for last year in August. I can't recommend going to Michigan Speedway more than I already have. It's a very, very fun place to see a race, but I think it's kind of cool. Bumpers That Deliver will be the car's primary sponsor. So a little bit of lemonade being made. We said how a $5,000 fine is not great for a team the size of Joey Gase's, and getting some sort of, real deal partnership out of that incident, I think is a lot of lemonade. So congratulations to those guys, and congratulations to Bumpers That Deliver. So we'll give them a little bit of shine.
I love it when there's like the sponsorships just make sense.
they're
Every once in a while you'll get them where it's like a perfect sponsor.
like they're definitely getting their money worth in this instance.
Just from the news article.
Yeah, exactly. The exposure that Bumpers That Deliver is going to get out of this, even us talking about it right now. Shout out Bumpers That Deliver, whatever their business is built on. I like the move that they pulled here. I don't know anything about their products, so I
would
can't
assume
endorse
it's probably
that.
like those glass repair businesses where they like come to you. They probably come for a little fender bender.
That's
bumper.
honestly not a bad business.
Yeah.
Safe Light Repair.
Yeah,
They're just missing a good jingle.
I'm also just guessing. I don't know.
No.
It's got to be.
I mean, we could have looked it up, but we're probably not going to give him that much.
Better
shine.
to guess.
I remember last year we did that with Outback. When Outback stepped up to the plate with the guy he's like, I came right back and I worked the midnight shift, and all of a sudden they went on the car for a couple. So this makes sense, and I love it.
Especially the lower level series. I mean, oftentimes we go to the races and we'll go to the truck race or the Xfinity race on Saturday, and it kills me to see that these cars that are in the race just completely blank. So I always love when these companies that otherwise wouldn't really have a spot in NASCAR or something like this spontaneously gives them an entry point, and it works out, and everyone kind of wins. So more sponsorship, the better. Obviously, that's what drives NASCAR. That's what funds these teams. So this is a great move.
Yeah. Second one. So Chase Elliott's team set the record for the fastest four-tire pit stop in the next-gen era during Sunday's race at Texas Motor Speedway. It was timed at 8.49 seconds. That was the headline. That's the headline that was running about a day ago. And then today, I believe it's both Joe Gibbs Racing and somebody else. Maybe it was RCR.
Stuart Haas.
Stuart
posted
Haas.
Something.
Yeah, so they're fighting this, saying that that's not true, that they've done quicker pits. So I'm going to put that on hold, that headline. It may or may not be true, but either way, getting sub 9 seconds, getting sub 8.5 seconds is a great thing for Chase's team, and I think it's one of the reasons that they did so well this weekend, obviously. So even if it's not officially the new record, it's damn fucking close. And another thing from Sunday's race, we got the numbers. It delivered 2.3 million viewers on FS1, up 4% over the comp race last year. They switched the scheduling for Texas, if you guys remember, so they made it a spring race this year. So Martinsville is what ran on this weekend last year, up 4% over Martinsville. And then even if you want to go apples to apples, Texas to Texas, it did 2.3 this year. It did 2 million even when it was at Texas at whatever time of year it was ran last year. So either way, the ratings for that race were impressive. So I'm happy to hear that as a NASCAR podcast. Not a DM, but we got another package to the house. Last year I'd gotten a package from Joe Gibbs Racing, and it was just a box. I opened it up, and it was Martin Truex's corner panel. No note, no nothing. Could have been sent to the wrong house. You never fucking know. This week, we had a similar size box delivered, and it was to my daughter, Bridget. Spider and I were down in Martinsville. We spoke to a gentleman who works with Joe Gibbs Racing and with Ty Gibbs. They know that my daughter is a big fan of Ty Gibbs. I don't have a problem with that. Like, I don't have a problem at all, because she could be a fan of a lot worse. Yep. And so they said they were going to send her something. I figured it was a T-shirt or a sweatshirt or something like that. They sent her a signed half corner panel, and on the back, like what race it's from, to Bridget from Ty Gibbs, the whole deal. It's very, very nice. I put a picture in the rundown. Maybe we'll put it up on the video of it. But my daughter slept with it, which isn't a normal thing to do.
No, it's kind of dangerous.
Yeah, so Bridget's a singer and a dancer. She's not like athletic, doesn't play like lacrosse or anything like that, but she loves racing. She loves watching these goddamn races with me, and she loves Ty Gibbs. So, we try to point out the human aspect of these people that we talk to all the time, and just good fucking people. So,
54
thank you so much
team.
for that.
The 54 team is beauty. Shout out Joe Crowley from Joe Gibbs Racing, top to bottom, great team. Austin Payton's another legend on that staff who helped us with the Frank walks when we were in Martinsville. And, between the whole Toyota team, Denny, Ty, and then the people behind the scenes that make them all, look good, are really some of the best in the business. So thank you to Joe and Joe Gibbs Racing. That's a great – I just saw that photo for the first time, Larch. Trump meme.
Cool.
I'm just seeing this now for the first time. But, no, that was beautiful. I love that. I remember that Joe asked you if there were an address that he could send some stuff to. I was not expecting you to get a quarter panel. You might, at this rate, we might have a whole car. Like William Byron's assembling Legos. You might have, a bumper from Kyle Busch, rear bumper from Truex, hood from Chase Elliott.
Yeah, it's like Infinity Stones.
Yeah.
I'm just capturing them all. Going to make the ultimate car. I should mention Manoli had a family issue, so he's not here today. But sitting in on the ones and twos is Booze. Ryan Boozernian, or whatever the fuck his name is. Does a lot of stuff with us with Rough and Rowdy and a bunch of other things. So love to have Booze on board. Let's recap it. Let's recap what happened this weekend. We're in between weekends of going to the track. We're at Martinsville. We're home this weekend. We'll be at Dega next weekend. So Friday night, Kyle Busch wins in a close truck race, sets a Texas Speedway record for most wins. I think he ties the Texas Speedway record for most wins. Wasn't like a runaway, Kyle Busch win where everybody was, you couldn't even see them behind it. It was a close race, but Kyle takes home another checkered. But more importantly, the Xfinity race on Saturday, they had a barn burner and had a great finish. Sam Mayer ran down Kyle Sieg for a photo finish, and Sam Mayer won by 0.02 of a second. Which I think translates to an inch or so when you're thinking about the speed that they're going to. So congratulations to him. A heartbreak for the Sieg camp, and he seems like a really fucking nice guy, but it is what it is, right?
It's racing.
Take the number 2 and walk away.
Yeah.
And that brought us into Sunday. Sunday, particularly the guys in the booth, Kevin and Clint, were not shy saying how treacherous. They kept using the word treacherous, and they kept using the word sketchy. when describing the track at Texas. Sketchy. Everybody said sketchy all over the place.
Yeah.
Which doesn't set up for people, like, it's not a real positive thing, I don't think, when people call anything sketchy. But that's how they set up the day, and they're talking about how it's flatter in turn 1 and 2. So, the track doesn't race the same on one side as it does on the other, how much hotter it had become by the time the Cup race rolled around, which obviously is going to affect the quality of the track as well. So going into this race, we knew there was going to be a lot of cautions, and boy, it fucking delivered. Yeah. 16 cautions. What did you guys think of the race from the outside looking in? Before we even talk about over-unders, what did you think about the actual race? I know Jeff Gluck puts out a did you like the race versus did you not? And it came in that more people liked it than didn't. But how'd you feel about the race itself?
I loved it. I mean, I thought the whole weekend, top to bottom, was exciting. I had a little bit of money on Kyle Busch in the truck race. The Xfinity race was obviously photo finish, super exciting. I think everyone was watching, hoping that Ryan Sieg would hold on. Unfortunately, still searching for his first win. And then Sunday, I've historically heard people kind of badmouth Texas. And even after Chase Elliott won, I texted Quiggs, and I was like, Quiggs, do you remember Chase Elliott saying on the pod or on the air to us at some point that he hated Texas Motor Speedway? I'm pretty sure I asked him, and I couldn't find the clip, so I'm not 100% sure on this, but that if he did not like, if there were one track he could remove, what would it be, and which one did he not like? And it was Texas. He said he always had terrible results there. So to see him pull out the win was very exciting. I thought the track is very cool. It seems different on each end of it. Each turn is different. And I thought it created some good racing, especially with the self-inflicted spins. We saw single-car spins. You said that might not be good, Large. I'm kind of the opinion where I like that. If guys like Denny Hamlin are spinning around on their own self-inflictedly, that to me leads credence and credibility to what the booth is saying about it being treacherous. So I enjoyed the whole weekend. And
they
I
weren't lying.
No.
The booth wasn't lying, and it came to fruition. 16's a lot. I enjoyed the race immensely myself, but I had the benefit. We were out on Sunday. I had the benefit of watching it in fast forward, right? Because I had taped it. This time I shut down all the fucking social, everything. And then I watched it in fast forward. So that made it a lot more bearable. But 23 lead changes over 13 drivers. I think that's good. Everyone's complaining about the lack of the ability to pass, but that seems to be the case. And then it'll go back to horsepower and tire fall off and all that. But I think for the most part, I enjoyed the race immensely. And even though we all had a little piece, like one of our secondary bets on all our cards, I think all hit, right? Yeah. We all caught something. Nobody paid attention to it because Dave won like $3 million. But so we did have some skin in the game right through to the end. And I thought a very dramatic finish. One that we can argue about, maybe, if it didn't involve guys like William Byron and Chase Elliott. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But yeah, I didn't mind it. What you think, Quiggs?
I'm usually a fan. Like, sometimes when a race has no cautions, I'm a little bit like, let's stack them up. Let's get a caution in here. Mm-hmm. This was maybe too many cautions. Maybe a number around like 10 would have been better. But I will say, with the cautions, which you may not have noticed, like if you were fast forwarding, but because there were a lot of like single car just spins, they got them back to racing very quick. Like, it was maybe 3-4 minutes, a lap or two. I thought it made for a pretty interesting race. It was a little bit too many cautions, I'd say.
And they're not going to move it. I mean, it just seems like that's where it's going to be. I heard Clint talking about what a great time it was down in the stockyards. I said I was going to save this for over-under. And then Kevin Harvick in the middle of the thing said, "Oh, that's why you're not responsive. You're hungover." Did anybody hear that?
I did. I feel like for longtime teammates, I feel like Harvick's been a little fucking tough on Clint.
Who's I think they just bust each other's balls, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I find myself feeling bad for Clint more often than I should probably.
And I think Clint shows him a certain degree of respect.
Yeah.
So he doesn't go back at him like, bullshit, you were drunk too.
Yeah.
But I just thought it, and I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy the busting of the balls. So for Kevin Harvick on a national broadcast, when Clint had missed a question he'd asked, because Mike Joy might have been talking over him, I don't know. He said, "Oh, that's why, because you're hungover." That's pretty fucking outstanding. We'll just get into it and start talking about the race. We'll do it through the over-unders. Listen, for the first time, what we're doing today, as opposed to another ad read, we're gonna award Nobody's Cooler to one person each week, and we'll take turns doing it. It doesn't necessarily have to be to the winner of the race. It could be anybody. It could be, bumpers for sale because they did a pretty fucking cool thing. And we're going to do that, and it's going to be brought to you by Arctic Coolers, because Arctic Coolers has been on board with us for a little while, and we're enjoying the relationship. They're available in all Walmarts now, or you can go to arcticoutdoors.com. That's RTIC outdoors.com. I spoke about it before. This stuff is built fantastic, and it's a lot cheaper than some of the other brands that you guys go out, pay way too much money for, falls apart. And they make these tumblers, they make the coolers, they make the soft coolers that go underneath the seats at NASCAR races, wheel coolers, everything that you want to keep stuff extremely hot or extremely cold, you can get from Arctic Coolers. So I thought, just to differentiate a little bit, each week brought to you by Arctic Coolers, let's go with Nobody's Cooler. And this week, Nobody's Cooler. Unfortunately, I do have to go chalky. And as we had mentioned before, I'm glazing the shit out of him just because I happen to own this thing. And it's got to be Chase Elliott, right? Everybody was very, very excited within the NASCAR camp that Chase had gotten his 19th career win after that 42-race rut. He's had momentum building past couple of weeks. Last 3 races, he was 5th at Richmond, 3rd at Martinsville, and then now number 1 at Texas. So he was getting to that point where maybe we would have started betting him. Neither of the 3 of us had him this week, but extremely happy and firm. Afterwards, he did the Polish victory lap. And he said he did that as an homage to Kulwicki, who we told you that's what this Polish victory lap as was named after a couple of months ago when I highlighted it. But Alan Kulwicki and Bill Elliott were like racing for, a championship essentially, and Kulwicki in the Hooters car. I was shocked that Hooters haven't had a win in their car in 31 years. So Chase broke that rut as well. I found that to be almost unbelievable. So please, somebody check me if that's wrong.
I didn't really hear what he said.
So a Hooters sponsored car hasn't won in 30 years?
Can someone please check that?
I'm pretty sure
years. It hasn't been.
Wow. So when Chase was winning, all his wins were coming in the Napa car and others.
Or Uni First.
That's so I understand it. Yeah. And wow. Perhaps I wrote it down as I had seen it, as I was taking notes and all that stuff, and I was like, I got to check that. I never did, so that's on me, JR Motorsports type shit. But still, somebody check that out, because I find that to be fucking wild.
I think that's right. I think I saw that stat too.
2 wins at Bristol Motor Speedway, the first in August that year, and again in 1992, spring of 1992.
Right. So spring of 1992 would be 30, so over 31 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
And the other thing is, as much as, that's
booze, by the way. I don't know if you're going to get that service from fucking Manoli, right? Manoli's always got like one of those gyros in front of him the whole time, and those lemon fries and shit. But that's booze stepping in. Your mic is off, by the way, Booze.
Shout out, Booze. I think the thing is, like, Hooters, you think is pretty. I think they get a lot of juice out of their branding for what they do, because I think they only get 2 races a year. But you look at Chase Elliott's deal with them, and it seems like it's much more than that. So I don't know. I think that stat seems like it checks out, because they don't really get a whole lot of races. But I think they do a good job monetizing the races they do, especially given this most recent one. So congrats to Hooters, sponsor of ours, sponsor of Chase's. Good win for everyone.
So what do you think, though, Spider? So I feel very comfortable giving him the Nobody's Cooler, right? The biggest of the overs I'm going to give to Chase.
Yep.
Brought to you by Arctic Coolers. I think that's a great idea and all that whatnot. But when he'd gotten out of the car, and I asked you gentlemen both this, he kept his helmet on as he went over and grabbed the checkered flag. He had his helmet on when he was up on top of the roof after he did the Polish victory lap. And for some reason, maybe it didn't mean as much to him as people thought. I thought when he popped his helmet off, he was almost going to be in tears or something, like somehow emotional. But he's not. That guy is fucking ice water the whole time. And yet he said something that I found even more bizarre than the fact that the Hooters car hasn't been in the winner's circle in over 30 years. He had said post-race, boss, thanks for sticking with me. Like, he said that about, Mr. Hendrick. He also said that about his pit team and his crew chief and all that stuff. Do you think it ever was so dire that people were not thinking about sticking with Chase in a 42-race rut? Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like, isn't that something wild for him to say?
I don't know. I kind of like him saying that in the sense that everyone, if you ask anyone else that's not named Chase Elliott, they'll probably tell you that, like, he has one of the safest jobs, in my opinion, and,
Right.
like, people were going to stick by him no matter what. But to hear him be, like, vulnerable and saying, like, I appreciate you guys for having my back, to me is almost cool, because that's, like, Chase Elliott in his own mind thinking, like, hey, I'm not the same Chase Elliott that you guys all think I, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm not as good as maybe the 6-time most popular driver leads people to believe. I don't know. I like the kind of humanness and self-awareness from Chase, as much as it may be unfounded.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever any thoughts of getting rid of him, but
Yeah.
He's
At
never
least
a
at
hot
this
seat
point.
guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we've never considered him a hot seat guy.
But he may have felt
Yeah.
that, like, you know, that kind of feeling where it's like you may feel like you're not doing something well enough and your job's in jeopardy, but like whoever's employing you may not ever have that thought. But he was like during that like losing streak, he wasn't good. Like, it wasn't like he was almost like just getting unlucky and coming in second or third. There may have been a few of those, but he was bad for that losing streak.
Yep.
But he's also Chase Elliott. Like, you don't get rid of Chase Elliott.
Is he back?
Yeah, he's definitely back. I mean, you look at the last couple weeks, he's been running well. I think this is his third consecutive top 5, and he obviously won the race. So, I mean, he's in one of the best cars. I think he's shook the monkey off his back. That was maybe like when you're in a slump, what you need to do is like hit the home run, win the race, hit a 3-pointer, whatever it may be. He's done that. So now I think the pressure's off. He's punched his ticket to the playoffs, and he can just be the driver that we all know him to be, which is kind of a threat in, you know, most any given weekend. So I think that we can expect that moving forward. And I think NASCAR wins from that. I think the fans win from that. I think it's a win-win all around, and I think I can comfortably say that Chase Elliott's back.
Joe Gibbs Racing won 3 races so far this year. Trackhouse has won 1, and there's been 9 races, so I just did the math. That means that Hendrick Motorsports has won 5.
Yep.
Between William Byron stacking up multiple wins, Kyle Larson, and now Chase Elliott. Bowman's seats gets hotter by the week, doesn't it, fellas? Like,
Yeah.
we've spoken about this before, but isn't Bowman in a position that Chase alluded to what he thought he was in his own mind? Like, Alex Bowman does have to sort of feel that, or is one of those things like these guys are so extraordinary, right? These 3 guys have won 5 of the 9 races, that I'm probably not being held to that high standard. Like, I don't know
There's
how
definitely
Alex feels.
that aspect of, like, it's hard to compete with those 3 guys, but if there's a hot seat at Hendrick, it's without a doubt Bowman by a mile. But at the same time, it's also like, do they change anything up? Their team is clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I'm historically #1 anti-Alex Bowman guy in probably the NASCAR space. That being said, I think his job is way safer than people like myself would like to believe. He brings in a lot of money. He was pretty much handpicked by Jimmy to fill the 48. Ally stuck with him. They're sticking with him now. I mean, to me, as long as he's not like wrecking every week or finishing like dead last, as long as he's like mildly competitive, he will be fine. And that's kind of what he has been. I'm selfishly enjoying his winless streak, but at the same time, I don't think his seat is as hot. Also, he's the #1 guy, and maybe this is justified, maybe it's unfounded. Like, people defend him like he is like a 5-time Daytona 500 champion, or like you know, you say one negative thing about him and people are quick to defend him, which I feel like I don't know. Don't take that for granted, because I feel like a lot of drivers would love to have an army of people just go to bat for them anytime anyone is mildly critical of them. But yeah, I do think that if there's a seat to be warm at Hendrick, it's got to be Bowman. And I also think there's a lot of exciting Chevy prospects that could get his seat a little heat. Are they preheating? Is Jesse Love, is Carson Hocevar preheating Alex Bowman's seat at Hendrick? I don't know.
How much did you love the top 10? Like looking at the top 10 and the results, I thought it's a really cool top 10 filled with stuff that's built for the over-under segment.
Well, speaking of cool and speaking of top 10, no one's cooler of the week than Carson Hocevar, in my opinion. P10 finish. I love to see the young kids coming in, making noise in NASCAR. Spire has been making a lot of initiatives to be more competitive, and to me, the best horse in the race, week after week, has been Carson Hocevar, who's a rookie, 21-year-old kid, 23, something like that, and he's showing out. So P10 finish this week. I'm really excited by the potential of him, and he's another guy, like, you put him in Hendrick equipment, who's to say how good he could be, you know? So I'm excited by the potential, and I love watching these kids develop. No one's cooler this week to me than Carson Hocevar. Everyone else, I'm sure, I mean, you took Chase Elliott. He needed a win.
Yeah, of course.
Brad Kay in second. He didn't win, and he's still hungry for that win. I can't call him the coolest. Carson's the youngest, coolest dog of the week, in my opinion. Rock that P10. Take that victory lap, King. Good for you.
I was watching the race, and I was watching, they had the camera on Josh Berry, and I said, does this guy a runaway for Rookie of the Year? And just as I did that, he had spun out and hit the wall. And then, conversely, I was shocked when I looked at the leaderboard towards the end of the race because, you know, even the coverage is so top-heavy, right, in and around these restarts in the first two rows only. I was shocked that Carson Hocevar was in the top 10. Yeah. I know he spun out in stage 2. Right, and somehow we got into kudos to him.
He's Anything just the most exciting. He's the most exciting thing that Spire's got going for me right now. It's been cool watching them make gains, and I think he's kind of been leading in that one. Obviously, Chase, I got to take the over on, which you did. Brad K, P2, I'm a little skeptical. Is that an over or is that an under? This is a guy that's now gone 107 weeks without a win. Obviously, second place finish is good, but Brad K, at some point, he's also the favorite for this week at Talladega. We'll save that for the pick segment, but I don't know that I like that. Also, Daniel Suarez, you mentioned, Large, every win but one has come from Gibbs or Hendrick, and that one that didn't was from Trackhouse and Daniel Suarez. Aside from this weekend, that was his only top 5 finish of the year, was that win that he had. He got another one this weekend, so I got to give credit to Daniel Suarez. Right behind Daniel Suarez was Chase Briscoe in P6. Credit where credit's due. Chase Briscoe, love him. He over-delivered. If you told me on this time last week that he would finish top 10, I would be happy with it, and he delivered. RCR was 8th and 9th. Austin Dillon 8th. Kyle Busch 9th. And those guys
much needed for that 3 team.
Exactly. Much needed for RCR. I feel like they've been a little sluggish, and it feels good to see Kyle Busch get a top 10 there. And then, like I said, my last over was Hocevar rounding out the top 10, but I pretty much gave you the entire top 10 as my over.
I was going to say,
but I was
tough for me to have it over if it's just.
Yeah. Did I steal any from you, Quiggs? Who was the number one that I stole from you?
I had Austin Dillon.
Okay.
I wouldn't have given Brad Kay an under since he finished.
Well, I said I was unsure. The jury's
out.
Brad
Kay in the interview afterwards, he said, you know, there are some mistakes that I felt I had made on the track, so I'm mad at myself as the driver. And he's like, and there are some things with this car where I'm not getting enough speed, and so I'm mad at myself as an owner. You know, like he can blame himself for both, so he can't enjoy a P2, right? So I feel you. I feel both of you guys. To be honest with you,
Large flashback 51 weeks. We're at the Boulevard at Talladega, and Clint Boyer and us are shooting the shit, and we're all talking about who's the pick to win at Talladega last year. And Brad was the favorite that week too. I'm not saying that that's undeserving, but my point is we've been waiting 52 calendar weeks, 107 weeks for a win from Brad Kay. Yeah. So the fact that he's the favorite and remains the favorite is a little skeptical. I gotta be harsh on him. He's the team owner. He should be able to put himself in a position to win, especially given the success we saw from his teammate Chris Buescher late last season. They really came alive. I was led to believe that RFK found something and had an edge that these other teams didn't. And Brad Kay seems to be every other Ford team, and Chris Buescher's out on an island of his own.
It seems like they're pushed, like when Buescher started winning, we were all saying, man, are they giving more attention to Buescher and not
Yeah.
the boss like type thing? It seems like that has shifted. Started to at the end of the last season, and it seems like it shifted, and Brad Kay is now the star of that team again. So, yeah, I can see both sides. Who else you got? Quigsy?
I'll give Denny an over just for that. Not where he finished, but I just like the way he raced that last lap. It was just like he just pushed the shit out of his car, try to get as much out of it, and it didn't work. He ended up, but it was just clean racing and just trying to get the absolute most out of his car. I like that. I'll give Jimmy Johnson an over for just
For winning, for finishing,
for not quitting NASCAR in general, because
Right.
every time he goes up to the track nowadays, it seems like an awful day for him.
So there's an over for Legacy. Look at that.
yeah,
There it
the
is.
over is he hasn't quit yet.
Never thought
think
I'd see the day.
I had Eric Jones in there as an over because he got some stage points.
Yeah,
Like he stayed out on some old tires,
Yeah.
so I gave some to him. I tell you too, even though I know he didn't finish well, it was kind of nice seeing Harrison Burton run up front for a long time.
yeah.
He seemed like he had a pretty. And listen, I know that some of the pit cycles had different people kind of up front, and I mean Chase's team really did play the pit cycles very well. But yeah, watching guys like Harrison Burton all of a sudden get some shine,
Oh.
mid race, I thought it was kind of cool.
Yeah, I got an under. I just thought of when.
You got an well. What about? Well, I kind of gave Ross an over just because it was his first stage win of the year. He won stage 2. So, but obviously Ross didn't have the day end the way that we wanted him to, which brings us into unders. Who do you think fucked up, Spider?
Well, I mean, who fucked up? It was the 2311 pit crew. Tyler Reddick got dogged again on pit road with about 50 laps to go in that race. And that just seems like I'd come on the show weekly and say that exact line, bar for bar, word for word. So they have yet to figure it out at 2311. Glad they got a great new fancy workshop and garage. But at the end of the day, I mean, they got to fucking sort that out. I don't know if they need to do overtime practice sessions and Denny and MJ come in on a megaphone and just start lighting people up. But 2311, figure it out. Figure it out. Tyler Reddick has been robbed countless times of opportunity of winning or finishing within the top 5, top 10, and just week after week it seems like the shortcomings are on pit road, which are not his fault, which as a Tyler Reddick fan is frustrating to watch. So they're my under this week, and then I'm gonna go against Quiggs, and usually he takes the under on Legacy that I give the over on. He gave the over on Denny, and I'm gonna take the under. Denny late race self spin, went on to finish 30th. I expected more from him, and one of the veterans. If there's a guy that you expect not to do the spin like that, it's got to be.
Yeah, but that's just. I mean, he was second if he didn't, or like, yeah, he would have finished second.
Right. He would have finished second. He could have won.
Yeah, but he's got wins under his belt, and he's like, I'm gonna push this as hard as I can, and it's either gonna lead to me losing or it's gonna lead to me maybe covering some ground.
Fair.
And he got up in the marbles. 2311 did have 2 guys finish in the top 10.
That is true.
Reddick. I know that Reddick was arguably the fastest car on the track, so an 18-second pit stop certainly didn't help out. But I think Bubba's outperforming. He was just on Corey's Stacking Pennies, which I think now plays on Sirius Radio too. They're giving Corey's podcast also on Sirius. So congratulations to him. And Bubba was saying how he's having such a great season.
Bubba's been running great.
Yeah,
my complaint is not with the drivers. I think Tyler Reddick did a great job salvaging fourth place finishing as he did. My point is, does he win the race if they're flawless on pit road? And how many times has that happened? I think I can count, and I'm not gonna I don't have a elephant memory. I can't sit here and name the races, but I'm fairly confident at least 2 times this weekend and in the past he's been dogged on pit road and could probably
100%.
Was the favorite to win the race in real time up until the hiccup that occurred on pit road. So, I mean, it's a tough league to win in. You can't be giving the race away on pit road. That's really all it is. I don't mean to discredit, as you said, Large. They had 2 top 10 finishes, and Bubba's been running fucking fantastic. But the reality of it is, how much better could they be if they were clean?
I'll confirm that we've called out his pit crew a couple of times, at least twice this season. I'll also confirm that I believe it was Chase who said that Texas was his least favorite track when we had spoke to him last year. I think that there are people that, since Tyler's shortcomings this week happened in the pits, I think there are people who are probably angrier than he is now. I'm going to ask you guys that question in a second by the time we get to the end of the unders, because, so many people, let's just talk about it. Kyle Larson looked like he was in a fucking rocket ship. He was in a rocket ship when he won stage one. And then his tire fell off, right? Like essentially during a caution where I think he'd already gone like 6 or 7 laps. All of a sudden and then all of a sudden he's like, I think my tire is flat. And then his tire had shot out ahead of him. He was like, no, my tire's gone. So he went from being the odds-on favorite, if you were betting real time, to all of a sudden getting a 2-lap penalty, which he then clawed back from, right? Yeah. Got back onto the lead lap, and then was not able to really climb as much as he would have liked to. He said the passing was tough. But also going around to pit row on 3 wheels probably fucks up the performance of your vehicle a little bit too. That, you can't just fix in a quick pit stop. So I think like Larson might be a guy who could be legitimately fucking angry that a tire popped. And to add insult to injury, those 2 guys are suspended for 2 races. His jackman and his rear tire changer. And also his fuel guy. His fuel guy got, I think, a 1-race suspension because he wasn't wearing the proper bib in the Xfinity race. NASCAR handed out a bunch of fines for this week for equipment. Like a couple of people wearing gloves that weren't the SFI rated fire retardant. One was a helmet that wasn't, approved. One was a helmet strap that wasn't approved. So there were a bunch of suspensions handed out this week on top of Kyle Larson's guys. And there's a little bit of, inconsistency that these pit guys are being suspended for a race because of bad gloves. I believe 2 of them are. When Joey Logano got a $5,000 fine for fucking with gloves and essentially making them into flippers. A little bit of inconsistency there, but whatever. It is what it is. So, like, a guy like Kyle Larson has to be fucking pissed. Denny, when he had seen that Chase was running him clean, probably isn't pissed. But Ross Chastain walked out of there like his fucking hair was on fire. Didn't do any post-race interviews or anything like that. I think arguably he's probably the most pissed off, more so than Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson, or even Denny Hamlin. You agree with that?
I was kind of pissed off with Kyle Larson, to be honest.
Were you?
Yeah, he had a. I took him live, but like I thought when he eliminated the 2-lap penalty that he was going to have a chance to like climb up through the field, and he really, as you said, Large, he kind of like stalled out. He made up, he got back to the lead lap. He put himself in lucky dog position, got the laps back, and then
it's a lot to ask though.
I'm not saying go out and win the race, but a 20. What he finished 21st?
21st, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 21st. Like you're telling me you can't blow by
for the ages. If
he couldn't get by. He couldn't get by Ty Dillon.
I mean, he only had so much time. He spent so much of that.
Daniel Hemrick
on the lead lap.
Ryan like no offense to these guys, they all finished within the top 20, but
yeah, but those guys that are in front of him didn't lose a wheel.
I'm looking at the live.
That's the whole thing.
I'm looking at the live odds. The live odds, even after the wheel came off, when he was like 8-1, down 2 laps.
Yeah.
Like my point is, if Vegas thinks he could win the race, I should be allowed to think that too.
Yeah, but you can't like expect that.
I'm saying my expectation was for him to be able to get by Ty Dillon and maybe Daniel Hemrick.
Yeah, but
21st.
I don't know what you want from him.
No, what we wanted is a miracle, right? Like you want to see the miracle. And listen, the headline to have Chase Elliott essentially beat Denny Hamlin and Ross Chastain to the checkered, and I know it didn't go as smoothly as just that, was enough of a headline, I think, for NASCAR. Probably one of the better ones that they could have hoped for. But Jesus Christ, if he would have came and had his fucking tire pop off, get a 2-lap penalty, and come back and win that goddamn thing,
that would have been
or at least
something.
Get into a top 10. I mean, by the way, before the race, Kyle Larson had commented on either qualifying or practicing at Texas how he felt like he was going faster than he did in the IndyCar. The previous week where he's doing 220 miles an hour around the IndyCar, he felt like he was doing faster in some of the turns in Texas. Just goes to show you what these guys were dealing with.
Yeah.
What if the roles were reversed? So towards the end of the race, we had a couple of restarts. On the restarts, you had Chase Elliott front row against Denny, and then Chase Elliott front row against Ross Chastain. And the first time Denny had spun out, it might have been Samaro, but Chase did not touch him at all. And the second time, Ross Chastain was essentially sent to the wall. And from all the camera angles that you saw during the live race, it did seem like William got into him. But then when you saw the perspective from Williams' camera, like his dash cam, you could see that, it was Ross that kind of got into his way. But if those roles were reversed, I think everyone's like, oh, Byron raced him clean. It was a racing thing because William Byron is such a nice guy, big Lego enthusiast. Oh, Denny didn't get sent by Chase Elliott because Chase Elliott is the guy. But if those roles were reversed, if it was Denny and Chase coming up on him, I think Denny would have got fucking crucified. And God forbid it was Byron and all of a sudden Chastain got into him. I think Chastain would have been fucking crucified. You agree that those guys get more of a quarter?
Oh, absolutely. But I think Chastain would have got it the worst. But I also think that people were pretty, critical of William Byron. As much as you said, the deep dive may not have, showed all the fault on William Byron, but the initial response on Twitter and online after that move seemed people were like very upset with William Byron. I don't know. I mean, obviously I had William Byron to win the race. He was my outright pick. I was hoping that he was the Hendrick car that won, but I don't know. I mean, I think that he definitely has a little bit of eyes on him for whether it be, whether it was intentional or not. There's certainly a conversation surrounding him about that now, whether he wanted that, intended that or not. So I think he's going to have to answer for some of the questions that these people may have for him.
How about Brad Kay, too, when they went to him just as he got out of the car? It was an unofficial result that he came in third. And I think it was Jamie who was interviewing him. He's like, I don't think I was third. I have a real problem with that. And they did. They went back to the tape because they had to judge where everybody was when the yellow had come out. After.
And what, they said Byron was second?
Byron was second originally. And then they moved. Like, Brad Kay is all over that shit. Like, he's like, no, don't say I'm third yet. And he wound up being correct. He was P2. So I love that kind of shit.
Yeah.
So Bowman probably in the unders. McDowell, unfortunately, 35th place finish, had some problems in the unders. They spoke to Ryan Blaney afterwards. Ryan Blaney's not having a great season, right?
Yeah,
he was
not really.
3 top 5s in the first 4 races, and the next 5 races he's only had 1. So Ryan Blaney is starting to get into that territory where he's in a little bit of trouble, and Ryan Preece had gotten into him. But Ryan Blaney had then said after the race, I used up Preece a couple of times earlier in the race, so I almost expected it. So I don't think we're going to have any of that smoke going forward. And then the last thing I want to mention, unless you guys have any other unders, anybody have anybody that really shit the bed that they'd seen?
I got just Christopher Bell's luck. He just has something every week that kind of fucks him up.
Does, I mean, dating back to Championship 4 last year, I'm sure there are more instances last season, but you're right.
He has really bad luck.
He seems like he's always getting dogged.
I'd also say Ty Gibbs, which this is the you bet on a guy, you notice him doing worse than
started P2 though.
Ty Gibbs started P2. His odds cut in half. He looked really good in practice and qualifying, and just had some trouble on pit road. Had some things he got into on the track, and just never had an awesome race.
I stand by. I don't think you can take Ty Gibbs when he's granted you gave that pick when he wasn't the favorite. But like if you wake up on Sunday and Ty Gibbs is the favorite, I can't stand by. I can't endorse that.
Yeah, he wasn't a favorite, but he was, I think, top 3 guys for lowest odds on Sunday.
Like stage 1, he had a loose tire and then his fucking pit box caught on fire.
Yeah.
Maybe back to the whole Larson thing, like Larson made up a 2-lap deficit like that. Ty kind of like, you're right. It took a lot for him to recover.
Every time he got something going, something kind of set him back.
I still think he's going to win a race this season, but I think it'll be in surprise fashion, kind of like Buescher or Suarez.
I agree.
No JGR cars in the top 10 this week. And the last person I'm going to mention is Martin Truex. Martin Truex is starting to get a little bit crazy, right?
Yeah.
Like, did you hear any of that stuff between him and his guys in the radio?
No.
Like, he was having a problem with the tires. Like, I'm going to come in, and then they had asked him about the problem, and so he had said exactly what it was. And so then his crew chief had said, "Yeah, come in." He's like, "That's what I just fucking said." I was like, "Okay," you know what I mean? Like, it's my wife when I get home a little bit late, and like he obviously snapped the other day and sort of got into Larson and was it Denny after the win?
Yeah,
it was at Bristol. So Martin Truex is not having an easy time. I mean, he still has a bunch of points amassed this season, but no JGR cars in the top 10 last week. And Martin Truex is starting to be a little bit on tilt. All right, so with that, before we put a bow on everything, we decided to ask in a NASCAR Hall of Famer to talk with us for a couple of seconds. So we're about to go 3 wide with Mark Martin. Hey, everybody. So born in 1959, Mark Martin is the final driver born in 1950s to win a NASCAR Cup Series race. Standing at 5'5", that makes Mark Martin shorter than Spider and older than me, which very rarely happens on this fucking show. So I'm extremely excited to have a Hall of Famer on there who fits those 2 criteria. Mark is serving as the honorary starter for Sunday's Cup race at Dega as part of NASCAR Legends presented by Geico, and we couldn't be more excited to have him here. How you doing, Mark Martin? How's everything going?
Doing great, man. I'm excited. Actually going to Talladega to be, like you said, to be the official starter. But it brings back a lot of memories. Talladega does. My first memory of that place was being in the stands as a teenager and watching Dick Brooks get his win there, which was an underdog win. That was cool. And then I made my first start there in '81 in the ARCA race, and I won it. So the first time I went there and drove, we ran over 200 miles an hour in the race, and that was big for a guy that was used to racing on quarter and half miles back home. So it was a pretty cool deal to get my experience there at Talladega. And the fans were always fantastic. We had so much fun cruising the campgrounds on Saturday night and seeing all the crazies out there. And of course, we did win NASCAR's fastest race in 1997. We won the race at average speed of 188.3 miles an hour. So that place was good to me. Daytona was not so good to me.
No, unfortunately, it wasn't. So would you say that that's one of your favorite tracks? And I know you've probably been at too many tracks to name. Can you say Talladega confidently is one of your favorite tracks?
No, but I did have good results there until we got into the 2000s, and it seems like every time we went there, we were swept up in somebody's wreck after the 2000s got started. So it was certainly not my favorite racetrack. My favorite racetracks were typically the mile and a halves, but my very favorite track was Dover.
It's one of the places that we haven't visited yet. We try to do at least like 12 races a year, and we do it. Dover's like one of those ones that I only hear good shit about as far as the tailgating and the experience itself. So it's one of those ones that we're definitely going to get to, I believe, next season. We're not going to be there this season, but next. Can I ask you I'm going to ask you a quick question. You see drivers today who only want to drive, whereas you came up understanding and turning a wrench on every part of your car, basically, right? You pop the hood and be able to do most of the work yourself if need be. How do you think that affects these young drivers, not having as intimate of a relationship what's going on inside the hood as they are what's going on inside the cockpit?
Well, it's a different day and age, and there's so much more technology now that the driver is more tasked with, as a young driver, is more tasked with iRacing and sim racing and simulators and computers and all the data that the car is studying, other drivers, in-car data, all those things. We didn't have that stuff back then. I came along. I wasn't the only guy that worked on my race cars. Rusty Wallace, Alan Kowicki. I even see Dale Earnhardt, pictures of Dale Earnhardt working on his cars, before he became, when we became big-time NASCAR guys, we understood the cars. Even in the 90s, most of the time I would tell my team, my guys what springs, what setup to put in the car I wanted for each race. So I still knew all the ins and outs of the setups all the way until I would say 2009, really 2009, when I started driving for Hendrick Motorsports, and they had simulation and a lot of engineers, and I kind of lost track of it there. But today the drivers have different pressures than we had. When I came along, Rusty and all of us guys, we typically got a ride in a back marker car. Nobody was really watching, and you overperformed in those cars, and people noticed, and you got an opportunity to drive a better car. And you had a lot of time to make mistakes and get your feet under you. Where now these drivers, although they don't have any experience working on cars, they've been, they've got a lot of experience in sims or iRacing or whatever, and they have a lot of data, and they have a lot of pressure because their cars are the same as as their Hendrick cars or their Joe Gibbs cars or whatever. They have to. These teams can only be patient for so long, and then they have to move on. So there is a lot of pressure. I'm not saying it's easier today than it was when I came along. It's never easy to make it to the top of your sport.
You mentioned all the changes that have occurred since when you drove to now. If there's one thing that has changed that would have benefited Mark Martin as a driver in that time since you've stepped away, what is it? And on the other side, there's one thing that would have been a nightmare that these drivers have to deal with now that you didn't have to. What would it be?
I think that probably the thing, for most of my NASCAR career, I didn't really have access to engineers, or if I did, they were new from the automotive side and didn't understand racing that well. So today you have multiple, in 2012, I went over to Michael Waltrip's team to drive the 55 car, and they had 13 engineers. That's Michael Waltrip's team. That's not Hendrick Motorsports. Hendrick Motorsports had more than that, and they were all good. That kind of education and technology would have really helped me make better and faster race cars in the 80s and 90s.
You had said that it's never easy. At the end of what you'd said, it's not easy for these guys. It's never easy. We're starting to get a little bit more privy to the physical taxation that these races put on drivers' bodies. Remember, like Corey LaJoie got out of the car the other day and passed out, right? We see these guys all automatically sit down and they're just absolutely tuckered after a race. You were one of the first guys to sort of adopt like a fitness and a nutrition regimen, right? Like before that, you would almost see in the garages people smoking cigarettes and drinking beer, where you seem to have been more in tune with your body, which is one of the reasons why, even though you are older than me, you're going to outlive me. I know that. I've come to grips with that. That's okay with me, Mark. I don't give a fuck. But so where do you rank these guys as athletes? Because I get that question a lot, particularly in Barstool Sports. Where do you rank like NASCAR guys as athletes? Denny had a very interesting thing about it, how he could hit a three-point shot. He might be able to get a hole-in-one, but he doubts that any professional athlete would be able to ride the wall within a couple of inches doing 190 miles an hour. Where do you rank the Cup Series guys as athletes nowadays?
Well, I'm not absolutely positive what the true definition of an athlete is, but as we talk about players in sports, basketball, football, baseball, whatever, they all require different qualities, but they definitely, if you're talking about a professional, you're talking about a lot of competition in it, and it takes a lot of work to get and develop the skills and the athleticism to do that. Well, auto racing is different. It is the same way in the sense that it requires, if you want, the reason I started training in 1988 was because I wanted to gain an advantage. No one was doing it in the sport. I saw the opportunity to gain an advantage. Number one. Number two, in 1982, I had some of the old school crew chiefs, or at least one of them, said I was too little to drive those cars, those Cup cars, and that pissed me off. So when I finally got a ride with Roush, where there were employees, and I didn't have to build the cars and work on them and set them up, I started going to the gym, 6 days a week or 5 days a week, and that was an opportunity to gain an advantage. Now everyone does it. Once one person does it, everybody starts to have to raise their game. These guys are physically fit, and they're very adapted to really, really tough physical circumstances, super high heat, and a lot more physical to steer the car with the G-forces that are in the car, the G-forces. I've always said, if you drive a car as fast as it'll go, it's easy. What's really hard is driving it faster than it will go. And the best race car drivers on the racetrack go faster than their car will go. And that's extremely physical because you're working the wheel in a way that, most people can't comprehend.
I want to ask you about IROC, where you're 5X champion, 5-time champion, and also SRX racing we saw recently go off the air, both IROC and SRX now unfortunately off the air. Do you think there's a need for that kind of racing? Do the fans, is that something the fans should have currently? And would you have participated in an SRX race had you gotten the call?
Oh, I got the call. I absolutely will not drive a race car. I'm done. It's like a switch that flipped off. I would drive anything, anytime at the drop of a hat, and I felt like I did a good job of it when I was a race car driver. However, that was everything I ate and breathed was racing, and I was on top of my game, and I felt like I was, that I was ahead of everybody in that respect. But when I stepped out of the car, the hole closed behind me. Now I don't have that edge of thinking that I've got the edge on everybody. I have no interest in doing it for fun. The hell with that. I never did it for fun. I did it to win, and winning is fun. I couldn't win now. I don't want to try. I don't want to work that hard because for 40 years, it sucked every ounce I had out of me, and I'm done now.
I love the honesty.
That is an incredibly honest answer, by the way. It sucked it out of me. I'm done. When I walked away, I don't think I could win. I'm not doing it.
I got to hear this butt. Go on.
Please, give me the butt.
To answer your question about the fans do deserve that. However, it is an incredibly tough model to follow now. It was easier in the 80s and 90s. The first time I was invited to participate in the IROC series, it was probably the biggest honor I'd had in my career. And I was alongside people like drivers like, Emerson Fittipaldi and, Formula One drivers and the best from road racing and from IndyCar and all that stuff. And I got to know them, and it was an incredible honor. As it got later, that the money changed and the demand changed, and it became something different. So you're not going to get a Formula One. Max Verstappen is not going to come over here and drive an IROC car 4 races a year because it's brutal on him to do. And the piddly money, even if he won it, wouldn't amount to a hill of beans to him. And that's an extreme, situation. But even IndyCar drivers, anybody who is not following and going to already be at that circuit, it becomes a drag on them to try to fit it in their schedule and be competitive. So the drivers stopped participating as much. And then, the money dried up, the sponsors dried up. Is a very tough thing. And that's why SRX was so cool and so much fun to watch, but it's just a tough business model. And I know IROC, may make a comeback. I hope it does. If anybody can make it happen, Ray Abraham can, but I don't know. It's a tough model to follow.
You had a soft spot for a young Joey Logano, and he credits you with a great deal of his success. Can I ask you why Joey? And secondly, when Harvick had retired, we had all these debates on who people who followed Harvick should then pick up as their driver. And it stood to reason that they'd make it somebody young. That way they wouldn't have to put up with somebody retiring in just a couple of years down the road. So, one, what did you see in Joey Logano back then? And two, like, what young driver nowadays do you see that you say, hey, that kid's got it? That kid's somebody that I want to watch and pay attention to?
So I saw Joey race the first time in Atlanta when he was 10 years old. He had already graduated to racing with the adults in a Legend car. And anyone who's ever driven a Legend car will probably tell you it's the hardest car they've ever tried to race in because they handle pretty poorly. And he outran all the grown-ups in the pro division, not the semi-pro division. I knew that night and said that night he would be a NASCAR champion. It was unbelievable. He was just a little bitty kid. And, he never proved me wrong. He was incredible talent, and, two-time champion now. As far as who I see coming up, I see some young guys I'm still watching, like, Jesse Love and a couple of other guys, but I don't really know yet. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say, this is the one till we drop down to Keelan Harvick. I really believe Keelan Harvick is going to do it. I think he's going to do it.
That's all, and sticking with young guys, one of the guys that you gave a shot to probably when he didn't deserve it, maybe that's not the right term, but it's also Larry McReynolds, who we love. We're friendly with his son and whatnot, and I think Larry is just an old school G. Like, what did you see in him? Right? I'm assuming he was drunk at the time, right? Larry, big booze bag back then, maybe? I'm just joking. But what did you see in Larry that made you give that guy a shot?
Larry was available.
Okay. Yeah.
Larry was my age. It was my first year in cup racing, and I needed someone to work with, and I tried the older guys in the older generation, and that was oil and water. Didn't really work. And I had seen Larry and seen how hard he worked, and I just needed somebody that would work hard and sort of see the world from the same standpoint that I did. And Larry and I worked great, and I wish we could have stayed together, but at the end of the season, I was broke and I had to sell the team, and Larry had to go get another job. But I have a soft spot in my heart for Larry. Nobody's ever worked any harder or studied any harder in the sport than Larry, and he would have been a huge asset to me going forward if I could have kept him around, but I wasn't able to. I went through a stumble in NASCAR in 83, 84, disappeared at the end of 83 and didn't get to even come back to NASCAR until 1988. So it was a tough time for me. And so when I got back to NASCAR, I got an opportunity to work with Steve Meal and Rubbin Pemberton. And so the rest is history. I stayed with Roush Racing for 19 years.
Absolutely.
So,
Spider?
yeah, Mark, I want you mentioned how much you enjoy watching SRX racing on TV. Maybe not as much participating in it, but speaking of watching racing on TV, the NASCAR Cup Series TV deal is currently being negotiated right now. I want to know, from a veteran driver and someone who's obviously been in the sport a long time, what do you think needs to come from the next TV deal? Are you satisfied with what we currently see broadcasted each Sunday, and what changes would you make?
Broadcasting wise, I'm satisfied with what we've got. I don't really have any major criticism other than I would like to see even more mid-pack guys, underdog guys, a little bit more information about them than what we see. I've always been that way, though. I don't know what the package. I'm not that close to the sport. I don't stay in touch with the crew guys, my old buddies and whatnot, the people that are immersed in the sport. But I know that there's a hell of a battle going on over all the TV money. And the sport's in a tough spot because it's so hard for owners to not lose money and to be competitive. And I know that the drivers are making less and less and less money, as it goes. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because I think that your William Byrons for example, when he's retired and 65 at my age, I hope that he's able to be comfortable as I am. I want the best for these guys because they are the elite. They are the elite. It's so hard. You can go out and win Xfinity races and try to make it in Cup and fail miserably. I mean, the step from Xfinity to Cup is monstrous, and it is tough. And these guys are the elite, and they should be paid in the same way. In my era, we were at the latter part of my era. Things were really good for the drivers, and I fear that going forward, it's going to get harder and harder for the drivers to do as well financially.
And obviously, it's still great to see you winning awards and honorary starter this year. We saw last year you win NASCAR Top 75 Driver with the 75th anniversary efforts. If there's one thing that you're most proud of in your illustrious career, what is it?
The first thing I have to say is the IROC. It's the only thing that I really beat Earnhardt in. Earnhardt had 11 wins and 4 championships, and we had 13 wins and 5 championships. And we were really close a couple of times to winning 6 championships. So that was probably it. The other thing that I'm most proud of is the respect that the members of the sport still have for me. I was asked a lot of times, how did I want to be remembered? And I'd just laugh and say, I just want to be remembered, man. Yeah. And I feel like, that I have a lot of respect, and I'm remembered by a lot in the sport.
You're a big Gucci Mane fan. Where did that come from? And I guess, is there any other artists that you think are next up or you have eyes on? Are you Ice Spice, Fivio Foreign, maybe?
So I got on to Dr. Dre in about 2000. It was 2002. Kind of evolved from that to Eminem, and then I had one of my son's friends. They were kids. Asked me, did I listen to Gucci Mane? I didn't know who it was. So as soon as I found him, it was like crazy. But you couldn't get him on hardly anything on iTunes. You had to go to datpiff.com and it was free. All the music was free, but you had to figure out how to download it onto your computer and then put it over to your phone. And I'm going to tell you right now, in my opinion, there is no one in the same zip code with Gucci Mane. If I rapped, I would never do a duo with him. Every time he does one with anybody, he just crushes them. I mean, that guy is unbelievable. I do like the old Gucci prior to the last prison much better than the new Gucci. And I liked his old music. I liked it when he was fat and scary.
Yeah.
He scared Charlemagne. I mean, he was a scary dude, and I don't know what it is. I like that, arrogance that they carry, because that's kind of, I hope that's the opposite of me. I try not to be. I've always wanted to be humble and not arrogant, but I like music that is arrogant, like Gucci. I liked Dolph. Unfortunately, he's already gone.
Yep.
I like a little bit of a couple of his Gucci's apprentices, but honestly, it's over. Ain't nobody ever going to be as good as Gucci.
I love that. And then my last question for you, obviously Arkansas native, big drama out of Arkansas basketball. I'm not sure you're an Arkansas basketball fan. You guys just hired Coach John Calipari. Is that something you're into? Is it big woo pig suey for you? How do you feel about that?
Well, I've heard a lot of woo pig suey, but I never was a sports fan. I always said that if it didn't have wheels on it, I wasn't interested. I usually don't know who's going to be playing in the Super Bowl until a week or so before the Super Bowl. So I'm not a Razorback fan, but good gosh, I'm surrounded by, people that are, go Hogs, man. I tell you, big time.
Awesome.
You've ridden in some of the most iconic paint schemes in NASCAR history. Is there a favorite? I know you've probably gotten countless jokes made with the Viagra car. Obviously, I mean that's has to get to you after a while. Is there anyone that jumps out at you as your favorite? We do a lot of paint scheme stuff here, just because like the Stakem car was clean as hell. There's a couple of them that I just saw of yours that I absolutely love. Is there any like favorites of yours?
Yeah, that Stakem car did look really good, but I think we only ran it one time at Pocono.
Yeah.
But when you use the word iconic paint job, it goes to 93 to 95. That's what the fans really think of when they think of me. However, 97 was my favorite. It was a more ribbon type paint job. And both those paint jobs really fit the Thunderbird. A lot of times they don't accentuate the body lines, but that iconic Valvoline really accentuated that Thunderbird. It wouldn't have looked as good. In fact, they had it on Pontiacs and some other cars when they were sponsoring other cars besides mine. And it looked the best on the T-Bird. So my favorite though is 97 Valvoline car.
And that's the one with the six almost looks like it has a flame to it, right? Where
no, that is 98. 98
okay.
Is they call that the Flying V's, and a lot of people really like that car as well. But yeah, we have we've got that race win Talladega diecast from the fastest race. We've got that on markmartinarchive.com. That's my favorite. That's my favorite one. Ask your your listeners to visit markmartinarchive.com. My son has done a bunch of race win diecast just recently, stuff that had never been made before. So it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's cool. And the Stroh's Light one also just brings back so many good memories. Before we let you go, we need two things. We need a prediction for the Cup Series championship this year, and we also need you to preview what our listeners and our watchers, our viewers, are going to see at Talladega this weekend. I'd like to get it from your perspective. I know you said how special of a place it was, and it treated you kindly and poorly depending on what year. What type of racing are they expecting from Talladega, and who do you think takes home the whole thing at the end of this season?
I think Kyle Larson is really looking good this season. Obviously, I would like to see Denny Hamlin win it, but I think it's a tall order with the format as it is. Especially, you just pretty much have to win the last race, and that's a lot to ask from anyone. I just hate for him to have to endure all the he ain't got no cup. That's just so ridiculous. The dude's got 55 wins or something like that. 3 Daytona 500s. He's won everything there is. He's one of the greatest NASCAR drivers of all time. And whether or not he wins a championship doesn't change the fact that he's done amazing things.
And then what do you think about this week? What do you think about what people are going to see there at Talladega? We're going to be down there, boots on the ground. So we'll take care of what everyone needs to see from the boulevard. What are they going to have to look out for on the track?
I know you guys are going to have fun.
Yes, I am.
So on the racetrack, it's going to be exciting to start. I predict it will get a long lull. And after the last pit stop, I'm going to say 40, 50 to go. Business is really going to pick up, and it's going to start getting interesting. And then they're going to start piling them up one right after another. Once it gets to 10 to go, I bet they'll have at least 3 cautions, at least 1 green, white, checkered. It's a wild one. And that's the state of super speedway racing today. And Talladega makes it a little worse than Daytona because Daytona is a little narrower and a little harder to handle on. And at Talladega, man, they can run 5 wide, and sooner or later somebody just winds up running over somebody.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. I can't tell you how much of a pleasure it is having you on. We'd love to have you on at some other time, Mark, because we're just scratching the surface. If you're a fan of the history of NASCAR, please do yourself a favor and get acquainted with this gentleman's career, because it wasn't one of those things where he's put in a car, he just stayed there forever. He's had ups and downs. He's raced with just about everybody, and he's an absolute national treasure. Mark Martin, thank you so much for coming on. Again, he's going to be the honorary starter with the NASCAR Legends presented by Geico this weekend at Talladega. Mark, be well, and I hope to talk to you soon.
It was fun being with you guys.
Thanks a lot, Mark.
Take care, sir. All right, well, I want to thank Mark Martin for coming on the show. Obviously.
Legend.
Yeah, it's nice to have a legend here. I'm going to just take a break to tell you guys that you're probably shaving wrong. Make the switch from a cartridge razor to a safety razor today with Vanderhagen. Safety razors allow you to get a closer, more comfortable shave like the one I have on the top of my head. The use of one-blade razors helps prevent nicks and cuts while making your skin feel smoother than ever. And the best part, these blades cost as little as $1 a piece and last anywhere from 3 to 5 shaves. This will save you thousands of dollars over the years compared to the cost of cartridge razors. The blades are ice-tempered, stainless steel blades from Germany that are sharp enough to give you the perfect shave, and the handle is made to last a lifetime, so the only recurring purchase you will have is for the blades. Check out your local Target and Rite Aid today and get yourself some Vanderhagen safety razors. All right, guys, so I think Mark did a pretty good job doing our job and give us an idea of what's going on at Talladega. We'll remind you that we're going to be down there, myself, Spider, Dana Beers, Grace, Brianna Chicken Fry. We're all going to be down there this weekend. Spider and I get down there on Saturday. We might be doing something with Alvin Kamara. It's going to be a packed weekend for Barstool. You can still purchase tickets to a tailgate with Brianna and Grace O'Malley in Talladega's famous North Parking Camping area. Tickets for the tailgate also include general admission to the Geico 500 and a Barstool times Dega t-shirt. I know they have some special college rates for that tailgate. My son was on last night. He's bringing a fuck ton of people from the Pike House in Alabama. I believe the college one might be sold out, but you can still get the regular tickets, and you get them at TalladegaSuperspeedway.com. This is all for the Geico 500. It's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern Time on Fox. We're going to have some unfamiliar faces driving in this thing, including SVG. We talked to him a couple of weeks ago. He said he was excited to get on this speedway. Wish him the best of luck. Our old friend Anthony Alfredo will be going. BJ McLeod, all Racing Cup on Sunday, so it's going to be a good one. I did look at paint schemes, and Tyler Reddick's jumped out. He's got that elephant skin Jordan one, and it looks pretty clean.
Thing's hot.
It's almost all white. Do you not like it? The white? Is that
what's wrong with it, Quakes? Go ahead.
Little Mercedes-Benz-ish.
From the Jumpman.
They put the logo in a circle, and it kind of
on the side.
From afar, It looks like Mercedes-Benz.
I didn't get that off of it from the jump, but now that's all I fucking see. Quicks can ruin. By the way, Quicks can ruin. Spider, can you agree with me on this?
I'm squinting like that guy's sketch. Yeah, it does on the side. On the hood, it's a little bit more clearly the Jumpman Jordan.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're looking forward to it. If anyone's down there on the boulevard, we'll be down there on the boulevard on Saturday and Sunday. So if you see us, let's have a couple of beers together. And with that, we're going to bring you to Picking the Tires, where we're going to make some bets. It's brought to you by DraftKings. On top of NASCAR, the 82 game preseason is in the books, and it's finally time for the real season, the NBA playoff action. So that's at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So from the play-in tournament through the finals, from every opening tip to every buzzer beater, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. And if you're new to this whole sports betting thing, it's super easy to get started. Try betting on something simple like a team to win. Go to the app, select your team, place your first bet. It's that simple. And here's something else to sweeten the deal. For all new customers on DraftKings, the app, bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. So new customers, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code Rubbin, R-U-B-B-I-N. That's code Rubbin to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. So we're going to give some picks. Listen, anybody can win this fucking race.
Yep.
I know a lot of serious gamblers say they don't like to bet on this thing because it's that unpredictable, but I think this is a lot of fun for the layperson, for the casual bettor to kind of go in there because everyone's kind of a long shot. What are you guys looking at? Do you want me to go first? Who wants to go first here?
Why don't you go first, Large?
Are you sure, Spider?
Yeah.
You son of a bitch. All right, so I took a look at this thing last night, and I put in 3 bets. The one that I had put in first is that I took Kyle Busch to win. I took Kyle Busch to win at plus 1,500.
Okay.
That's the only one that I put in it to win. Michael McDowell, top 5, plus 500. I think that's pretty good odds. Plus 500 for a top 5 for McDowell. I took Justin Haley as a top 5, plus 900. Justin Haley is going to be running in this one. I like him top 5 plus 900. I don't like him to win. I'm not even sure if I like him as a top 5, but I think it's a pretty good value at plus 900. So Michael McDowell top 5, Justin Haley top 5, and Kyle Busch to win is what I have right now. I think I'm going to sprinkle something on Jesse Love on Saturday, but otherwise that's it for me. What do you guys got?
Quigs.
I'll go. I'm going with some drivers that need to have a win, that haven't had the best season. So with that, I'm going Joey Logano plus 1,100. And I'm going with Alex Bowman plus 2,200. I really like Bowman this week. He feels like a guy. I never take Bowman anywhere. And I feel like at super speedways, I always have, if I have a guy up there at the end, he's always like a worry that he's going to steal the race from me. So maybe it might be good to have him, and maybe he could steal it for me instead of against me. And then I'm doing something completely new that I really like. I'm doing a 3-driver top 10 parlay. So I'm going with some longer shots, but maybe hoping there's some carnage and they can squeak their way into the top 10. I got Josh Berry, Noah Gragson, and SVG all top 10, and that is plus 3,800.
Wow.
So
I mean,
25 to win 1,000.
Yeah, that should be much, right? Yeah. So all right, a little bit of a long shot.
Yeah, we'll try that out.
You weren't tempted to take Brad K, or is he still in jail for you?
Fuck that. At that
he's
price,
at the. I don't think he should be a favorite. I don't know. I'm just not a favorite guy at super speedways. I think your best bet is to get value guys lower down the list. But
okay.
Well, that brings me to my card.
Go.
I'll start with chalk, which is not what you just suggested, Quigs, but I'm taking Blaney 10-1. To me, if you're going to take a guy that's 10-1, it's not Brad K, who hasn't won in 100-plus weeks. It's Blaney, who hasn't won this season, but is defending his Cup Series championship last season. Ford's still searching for their first win. I think it's Blaney if a Ford gets it done here, although it's super unpredictable. He's probably the safe bet. There's a reason he's 10-1. He's typically hanging around at the finish at these plate tracks and in contention for a win late. So for that reason, he's got to be on my card, especially for the fact that, like Quigg said, there's a lot of guys that are hungry for wins. He checks that criteria. Moving on. Onto the value part that Quigg suggested further on down the board. I'm looking at 2 guys that were in the championship 4 last year that aren't necessarily the best super speedway plate track drivers, but I'll tell you what, I'm willing to take a flyer on him for this price. Christopher Bell, 16-1, and Kyle Larson, 19-1. This will probably be the highest odds we're going to find on Kyle Larson this year. To me, I would rather do something like those 2 guys as opposed to going deeper down the list and hoping I get lucky on, let's say a Josh Berry or something like that. So these guys have, consistently delivered, and granted not as much at plate tracks, but I think their chances are just as good as some of the long shots. And for the price they're at, I'm not going to not have them on my card. So you got a Toyota, you got a Ford, and you got a Chevy to pick from. There's 3 outrights. I like Blaney to win the race, and obviously would be happy if it were Bell or Larson. But that's pretty much what I got. I'm also very tempted to just take Ford outright at plus 170. I'm not going to do it, but I think for someone who's a little skeptical to bet this race and doesn't want to take just one driver that may be caught in the big one, Ford at plus 170. I wish it were a little higher odds, especially given they haven't won through 9 races, but I think that's fun. You get like about 40% of the field. You get Blaney, who's my personal favorite pick to win the race, and you get a bunch of other good cars. McDowell, as Large mentioned. You get Logano, who Quiggs mentioned. Keselowski, who's the other favorite. So, yeah, Ford, I kind of like just betting the manufacturer that's going to win. Sometimes that's easier than trying to pinpoint the actual winner. But those are my picks. I tend to lean a little bit towards the Fords and Blaney, but if I had to pick a Chevy, it would be Larson 19-1. If I had to pick a Toyota, it would be Bell at 16-1. And I'm sure those lines are going to change a little bit as the race gets closer. But go on to DraftKings and hunt now. You could probably get really good price for some of these guys that will probably be fractional odds come
I was just
Saturday.
looking at it while you were going, Spider. I think I'm going to add Bubba Wallace, top Toyota, plus 400.
Bubba's been running so good,
Right.
and he typically is pretty good at plate tracks. So I think that's a great pick.
Yeah, I'm going to take him plus 400 for top Toyota. I mean, obviously you get better odds from. I think he's plus 1,500 to win the whole thing, but I think I can confidently do that one. Yeah. All right, so that's it for us. Again, as Spider had said, hit DraftKings, make up your own mind. I guarantee your favorite driver might be like 2,000 plus 2,000.
Yeah.
This is a good place to just bet on somebody and root for them and bet on multiple people because you have some money to spend. All righty, that's it for Rubbin is Racing. We'll see you guys down in Talladega. Like we said, there's still some tickets available for the tailgate, and we'll be whooping it up all weekend. We'll see you next week on Rubbin is Racing.
Take care.
Peace.